We have a unique but rapidly shrinking window of opportunity to learn lessons and reset ourselves on a more sustainable path.
What is it that would make it so that history would look at this crisis as the great opportunity for reset?
The Great Reset is a welcome recognition that this human tragedy must be a wake-up call.
The world's problems fit on three sides of a triangle. It's one versus many, man versus nature, and the unfortunate foundation is long-term versus short-term.
Any recovery stimulus should have green conditions attached to it.
We have to change our economy dramatically in the next 20 or 30 years, and the next 10 years is absolutely decisive.
This transformation essentially means that the whole way that we do business, that we live, and that we have grown accustomed to in the industrial age will have to be changed. We will have to leave that behind.
The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order.
To embrace the possibilities of tomorrow, we must reject the perennial prophets of doom and their predictions of the apocalypse. These alarmists always demand the same thing: absolute power to dominate, transform, and control every aspect of our lives. We will never let radical socialists destroy our economy, wreck our country.
And it is a dangerous country right now. It will be absolutely dangerous if Trump wins re-election. Trump wins re-election. Trump wins re-election. The General Assembly routinely votes 185 against the United States on almost everything right now.
Wise leaders always put the good of their own people and their own country first. The future does not belong to globalists. The future belongs to patriots.
I'm sure at this point, a lot of you guys heard of this expression of the Great Reset. But basically, what does that mean? And what does that entail for the likes of the average retail investor? Now, when it comes to XRP, the statement of retail investor has never been the focus of the likes of Ripple. Brad Garlinghouse has basically mentioned that and so on. But without further ado, let's get right into our particular coverage and why this is so important to understand what the Great Reset is all about.
If managing your crypto feels like solving a puzzle, it's time to switch to Decent Wallet. It's just a few taps. You can manage, track, and secure your crypto with unmatched ease. And here's the best part. Grab your Decent Wallet at a discounted price by using the referral link below. Don't miss out on making your crypto experience smoother and more secure.
So as you can see right here, this comes of course straight from this particular individual. Once again, I'll give him a shout out. His name is Coach JV, and he has lots of great coverage, of course, about the likes of XRP and some of these other ISOs. Now, on this particular statement he made, which is Ripple/XRP in the World Economic Forum, the quote-unquote Great Reset, listen to what he has to state on this particular clip. If anything, it's going to give you a broader perspective of what it basically means, and of course, we'll do a thorough breakdown on how this relates to what is going on with the likes of Ripple, XRP, cross-border payments, you name it. This is about 3 minutes. And of course, we'll come right back here briefly to do some post commentary here in the moment.
This is really, really important stuff that nobody's paying attention to. As many things are happening, there's hints being dropped on exactly what we've been saying for the past 2 years. And everybody's looking this way. There's a lot of things going on this way. So on September 21st, 2022, the World Economic Forum launched the Crypto Sustainable Coalition and Web3 potential for fighting climate change. Now remember, the World Economic Forum, Larry Fink is on the board of trustees. Who's Larry Fink? He is the head of BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world. and his job as the board of trustees is to move the mission and purpose of the World Economic Forum. Ripple, Stellar, Avalanche, and many other are part of this coalition around moving in Web3 to support climate change. And if you watch my video today, link in my bio, I talk about the fact that all the news stations and all the Congress people now are talking about, yes, crypto is here to stay, but, the big but, we are going to be wiping out non-utility tokens. They don't say it that way. Here's what they say. The ones that have real world solve, like supply chain, movement of money, infrastructure, software, the new monetary system are here to stay. And I've been telling you guys, the Ripple SEC case doesn't make any sense. The only sense it makes is they sued the most well-run, most capitalized, most dominant crypto company in the world because they could use them to bring in regulation and figure out what's a security and what's not a security. So as they threw this case out against Ripple, they all moved into cryptocurrency companies to consult for them, getting themselves set up as they tell us cryptocurrency is fraud to get the retail investors out. And what they're going to do is they're going to regulate the living shit out of these exchanges. Many of them are going to collapse because they're over collateralized, and you're going to end up with a monopoly of certain exchanges that are connected with the Federal Reserve that will have a master account. And then you'll be in your new monetary system, blockchain technology, on-demand liquidity, distributed ledger technology, and you'll realize those who control the money control the information, control the people. It's nothing new under the sun. It's a switch from industrial to technical. The old monetary system is done. Sovereignty is here, and it's always been available to you. You're not gonna run from anybody. You've always been free.
All right, so shout out, of course, to Coach JV. And you could follow him at Coach JV_. He has great content. What he brings to the table from his perspective of what's going on, for instance, with the World Economic Forum, you name it, is really, really great coverage. Now, in regards to some of just that, I want to go ahead and show you some of this as well. I'm going to come back into the frame for just a moment and check this out in itself. So, there was this, again, kind of like in connection to some of the things that Coach JV was basically stating. So this comes from Clive Thompson. If you're wondering who he is, basically, he's a retired wealth manager, of course, in Switzerland. And his particular perspective and breakdown of what's going on with this quote-unquote Great Reset brings a whole other perspective, to say the least, on what could very well happen here soon. Now, of course, I'm not trying to make any conspiracy or anything like that. If anything, I just want to bring different perspectives, and if anything, let people be more aware of what the situation could very well be, right? What could come to light and so on. This gentleman brings just that, a type of perspective in which really makes you think about everything that's going on, especially with the World Economic Forum is trying to present to us and so on. The Great Reset, if you will. And then on top of that, for instance, what the likes of XRP, XLM, and some of these bring to the table as far as, the cross-border payments. Again, the change in the monetary system. And that's the key takeaway when it comes to this whole Great Reset. This one is about 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Listen to this, and of course, we'll come right back for some commentary here in a brief bit. And if anything, I'm going to full screen this one as well.
I think it's quite likely at some point the world is going to go into a crisis, or a country is going to go into a crisis. It might be the UK, it might be Italy, might even be the United States, but something is going to happen. Things are very, very taut in the financial world at the moment. When that happens, I think they will close the banks. You'll wake up on a Sunday afternoon or Sunday morning and hear the news that they've shut the banks, they're not going to open on Monday. And then by Monday evening or Tuesday, you'll get the announcement that we're having a new currency. Then don't worry, it'll be 1-to-1 against the old currency. But there'll be some restrictions on your ability to convert your old money into the new money. So if you're poor and you have a small bank account, it'll be converted 1-to-1 straight away. So will And you'll probably even find that you get a free gift from the government to kickstart the system. Maybe £3,000 or £5,000 will be given to every citizen gratuitously to kickstart the system in the new CBDC. But if you have 100,000 or 1 million in the bank, you're going to be told, yes, it's 1-to-1, but you're going to have to wait to convert it to the new currency. Now, wait means never. We all know that, but they won't tell you that. They'll say it's a temporary suspension because we're in the middle of a crisis. The people are rioting in the streets, and we need to calm the system. So here's some free money, everybody. Go and enjoy yourselves. And by the way, the rich can't convert their money for a while, but they'll be able to do so later. So if you happen to own Apple bonds, they'll be denominated in the old dollars. You won't be able to, it'll still be old dollars. You won't be able to convert those old dollars until you've got the cash. But when you get the cash, you'll need permission to do it. And you're not going to get that permission. It'll be exactly like we had in Britain back before 1975, when we had the exchange controls. You needed permission from the Bank of England.
Project Rosalind's objectives were for the Bank of England and the Bank of International Settlement to understand what a CBDC means for banks, institutions, payment organizations, and fintechs in a real-world setting. We actually created a new form of money. We were able to create a new form of escrow, a digital escrow. We saw firsthand participants like the Central Bank of Canada, Amazon, Barclays, MasterCard use this innovative escrow technology that we built to create new types of payments and new types of flows.
What made Project Rosalind so successful was that it was very, very driven by end users. They engaged the API users and some big folks and some small folks early on and continuously throughout the project, and they still are doing. And that focus on what is it that end users want, why will they find it useful, actually is a massive contributor to project success, right? It means there's a reason for the project to happen, which is not the case with all blockchain projects. It was very, very iterative. Every week we were coming up with new requirements. Every week we were producing new demos, and we had really strong participation from the Bank of England, from BIS, from everybody. And the project was like an absolute dream, right? It's the best project we've worked on.
Was truly agile. We're receiving requirements, shipping a build, receiving feedback from users within a 2-week span. It's something that you don't get very often in projects or products, that you're getting user feedback within 2 weeks of getting the requirements. So that by itself was exhilarating.
Quant's technology for Project Rosalind essentially provides the technological foundation of the entire project itself.
A big part of our contribution to that was overledger. Our technology, and that made everything much smoother and much faster. If we'd been building against a regular blockchain and integrating with it directly, we would never have been able to do it in 6 months.
The whole idea of Project Rosalind was to create a whole bunch of APIs that businesses and banks could use to interact with CBDCs. Those APIs actually talk to Overledger and interact with the blockchain via Overledger. So we literally provide the technological foundation for interacting with blockchain.
The other area where we contributed a lot was in our smart contract expertise. We built the smart contracts for this, which are quite complex central bank digital currency smart contracts, and that's a kind of a credit to the folks on our tech team. The main challenges in Project Rosalind were around kind of defining exactly what do we mean by a CBDC, right? So there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. It could be decentralized, it could be centralized, and so some of those big decisions needed to happen quite early on. The other challenge that we had was around offline payments. Offline payments are just technically difficult, and it took us longer than we expected to work through how that works. We were successful in the end, but it took a while.
We had so many different requirements to cater for, and taking those diverse requirements and diverse use cases and boiling that down into a simple set of APIs that would suit everyone was a design challenge in itself. To then take those APIs and build them rapidly was a fun challenge, but a challenge nonetheless.
The learning outcomes from this project for us have been really quite transformative. So there was the big thing with retail CBDC is, so what? Right? Well, what's the point of this? And Project Rosalind came up with some really, really good answers to that, which were kind of collaborative through the whole process, but actually they've given us a lot of clarity in terms of how that should work, and that's affected some of our other propositions.
We have kind of laid the groundwork for how Quant wants to do projects going forward. There was a huge amount of collaboration, and it was an absolute joy to work with everybody. Plus, internally within our teams, it challenged us to work quicker and collaborate internally within Quant as well. So honestly, it was a joy.
I mean, I remember when I travelled abroad the first time, I was allowed to take £50 with me abroad. Didn't go very far.
Again, different perspectives and trying to understand, more about this whole thing when it comes to the Great Reset. E-Smitty recently addressed XRP enthusiasts with his, of course, Twitter page saying that Ripple affiliated token is closer to its beginning than its end. Now listen to this just for a brief moment. Previously, he predicted that XRP price would not only hit $1,000, but would reach, of course, 5 digits. Now, again, I didn't realize the whole thing of, the narrative with USA Today and so on, other news outlets, they really try to lowball it, but at least they're quoting this particular one. States, this comes as Ripple continues its expansion in the world and is currently working, of course, scaling to the EU market. Ripple's on-demand liquidity joins Amazon payment service provider program. Will it drive XRP price to 5? I mean, they're focusing so much again, from a retail side, right, which is not the focus of Ripple anyway. But it says drive it to 5. I mean, even if you took this out of the equation, which don't get me wrong, I'm not discounting the whole thing with Amazon. That is a huge positive catalyst. But again, look into it for yourself. When it comes to the difference of community-driven news and mainstream, the difference is literally night and day. Hence this particular example and so on. And don't get me wrong, XRP to $5 is a huge, big stepping stone, right? But let's face it, even with this, right? Let's say it does hit 5 with this whole Amazon payment service thing that's going on. That SEC, thing basically going away, right? For instance, a big win for Ripple and XRP. That alone, without this, would drive it, in my humble opinion, at least to $10 and so on. But teach his own. For instance, it says Inter & Co., formerly Banco International, the owners of leading Brazilian financial services super app Inter and a client of Ripple's on-demand liquidity services, has announced it has joined Amazon payment service provider PSM program. Now, in regards to this particular press release, they have stated that the digital bank Inter's Brazilian clients who are sellers with, of course, Amazon US will now be able to receive and send cross-border payments directly to Inter accounts. That simply makes sense that they would partner up with the likes of Ripple's XRP, because if anything, that is the premier standout one along with Stellar's XLM.
So, I mean, the biggest thing that we're working on is kind of above the protocol. It's this consumer wallet for people to actually use Stellar, which I'm pretty excited about. It's essentially, you can kind of think of it like a global Venmo, where it's allows you to do cross-border payments, save money in dollars in places where they have really high inflation, things like that. So it should be really useful for people, and it's got a really awesome UI and it doesn't really expose the fact that you're using crypto, which I think is cool. So like, your grandma or whatever should be able to use it. Anyone who can use Venmo should be able to use this thing.
And will it connect with local companies, like M-Pesa or whatever?
That's the idea. It's because it leverages sellers' interoperability. Like any financial institution can kind of get on and they can interoperate with the users of this wallet. And we use, financial institutions kind of all over the world to be the fiat on and off for this thing. So if you're in Argentina and you want to load up Argentine pesos, you go through a partner there that does it, right? So, and this can allow the thing to kind of grow organically and be useful all over the planet.
Like, comment, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks for watching. Please hit that bell notification as well if you don't mind. You all have a blessed day, and we'll see you on the next one.